Hey, welcome everybody. It's time again for another Health Talks with Dr. Trinh. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you the habits for a healthy life as we examine what's holding us back from the man who's never held back. Dr. Trinh, welcome, sir.
I'm held back every day. I Where are you, Paul? I don't see you. I only see your image.
Oh, I'll come on. I'm having
Oh,
trouble
okay.
here with my camera this morning. Here, we'll figure it out.
Aw, don't worry, you're just as handsome, Paul.
We'll
I
figure it out.
I have my good friend James Stephenson, right? Stevenson?
Yes, yes.
On today, and
My good friend, but I forgot how to say his name here. My good friend here.
Well,
as I was telling him, it's still better than Dr. Dung proctology, all the other stuff that but but anyway, we're gonna chat about something that's been a passion for James and kind of like an expertise with what he does, and it has to do a lot with mindset. Is that right,
Yeah.
James?
yeah, yeah, it does, and it's kind of interesting because it starts with an assessment. So it's basically how do our thoughts helping us or holding us back? Um, and I don't want to. I don't know if you wanted to go a certain direction or not, but
Wherever you want, James, is your direction, your
I'll
day.
jump in
There
then
we go.
and give just a little bit of the story. So my background is engineering. I people go into engineering because they don't like to work with people, right? They'd rather work with stuff. I mean, so we're more. It's easier to work with a rocket motor than it is to sit down and have a talk, a discussion with people on Zoom or however. But I came across an assessment because of my own challenges that I run into in terms of trying to get better than I was and what was getting in my way. And a lot of times in the corporate world, particularly, but you've heard about the Myers-Briggs assessment and
I've
personality.
done it. Hmm.
You've done them.
Hmm.
It's been a long time. I can't remember INPJ or whatever the
Whatever
categories of
letters, yeah,
personalities that
right.
we get, and they define us. And in fact, when they give those to you, they tell you that these don't change. You're born with them, and they're going to be that way throughout your life. And if you think about that, well, that's kind of a damning statement if you can't change because it's inherent and it's your personality. Now, we do have inherent characteristics, inherent abilities, but to say that we can't change is very, very limiting.
Hmm.
Um, so, I in my world of evolution, I left my job 3 years ago as in the engineering world, in fact, for a rocket motor company,
Wow.
and had a book come out, and I've got these big visions of I'm gonna go in the world of coaching. I was in the training and development world, in the corporate world too, and I love that. But I keep having these roadblocks. If you build it, they will come. All right, I write a book that gives me credibility. Right now, people will listen to what I'm going to say,
Yeah.
and I'd schedule workshops, and I'd have 3, 4 people show up. And
Hmm.
there's a big difference between the ideal, what you can create in your mind and what it takes to actually create in reality.
So let me
And
stop here for 1 second. We got a real rocket scientist on this panel this morning here.
Yes, we have a rocket scientist, a real rocket
A
scientist here.
real rocket science.
a
So
real rocket scientist,
is the science of brain power of what how your own thoughts hold you back or help you, this positive attitude, this mental acuity here, is this rocket science or is this something we can all
it's
get a hold of?
in a lot of ways it's more rocket science than rocket science is,
Hmm.
um, because it causes, it's easy to look at, well, I say it's easy to look, it's not easy to look at math. um, you got calculus. I don't know how many times I was ready to quit college because differential equations, man, I can't it's beyond me. Modern physics, it's beyond me, but yet we press forward to try to get there. For what drives us, what drove me at that point was fear in a lot of ways. How am I going to provide for a family? um, am I going to succeed? If I don't pass, what does that say about me? One of the best compliments I got was from a doctor, not Dr. Trinh here, but No, he's given me some too. But he was the head of gynecology in a hospital in Michigan, and we were at an event together just coincidentally, and he came up to me. He said, "Oh, you're an engineer. Can I shake your hand?"
Hmm.
You know, sure. You know, here's this medical doctor, the head of the gynecology department at a big hospital in the Detroit area. And he said, "I tried to go in engineering, but I couldn't handle the math, so I had to go to,
I had to go to med
medical
school. I
school
could.
instead."
Yeah.
And I
Med school's
thought,
the easy one. Anybody can do med school.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
It's a walk in the park.
I wish I had given up on math and gone into medicine instead, maybe. How did we get to that point? Oh, rocket science.
Yeah. So is it rocket science? Is it that complicated that we can't grasp? Do we really understand what it is? And where are we at in the science of brain studies and brain understanding and thought patterns?
Uh-huh. Well, here's the tool that I came across, and I like it because it's scientific. It's actually backed by math, transfinite calculus, and some other mathematical models.
What was that? Transfinite calculus?
Cantor's transfinite calculus.
What?
So he threw that in there casually. Yeah,
we
right.
can put it in a box, right? We can measure it. It's finite. Well, transfinite means it goes beyond something that we can quantify or put a box around.
Right.
So taking calculus and putting it and applying it to something that is not confinable. Right. So that's the science of this math. So it's basically two lists, and Dr. Trinh, you actually took this assessment a few weeks ago. We haven't talked about yours yet, but
I totally forgot it. I took.
Oh, we're going to talk about that today. I want to know how his brain works. I don't quite understand it here.
I did the Myers-Briggs thing, and it told me I was a cult leader. It wasn't good.
I believe that.
We already figured that out, right? You're starting some religion.
It wasn't good.
Christianity and The Walking Dead, or the
Walking Dead with Jesus. I mean, they're both resurrected, right?
Oh, see, I never saw the connection between Christianity and The Walking Dead. It's about resurrection here. It's about
resurrection.
One's a good resurrection.
You got to get the logo in there, Blake.
Where's the logo? Oh,
there it is. The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead.
A resurrection, right, of the dead. So anyway,
yeah.
All right. Well, so we're walking around this. I want to just see if I can wrap my head around this. So you were a rocket scientist for many years, and you decided, I'm not going to be a rocket scientist anymore. I'm going to be a coach. That's a pretty big mind shift to go from one field to another. Was that something that consciously came up? Was that just something that evolved? I guess what I'm trying to say, are we whoever we think we are, or are we just creatures of reacting to circumstances?
No, we are definitely who we think we are. Unfortunately, we don't realize that. If we don't realize it, Paul, then what we do is we react to our circumstance.
Yeah, I think that's what most of us do. We react to our circumstance. This happens, so I do this. This happens, I do this. We don't see ourselves as control of our own. We think we are in some sense, but we're affected by the world, and all I can do is, my late father was that way. He grew up in the Depression. And I used to I'm a child of the 60s, so I endlessly would think about what's my purpose and where am I going and who am I? And he'd say, just go get a job. What's this? Think about it. He didn't have a choice. He came out of World War II, came out of the Depression. He took the first job. He worked at it for 40 years.
Yeah.
End of story.
It was different. And you say that, it's so funny because at this point when and believe me, I'm way outside my comfort zone when you say, you're a rocket scientist. I'm a mechanical engineer, worked for a rocket motor company. I was actually in operations management and then in the coaching and training world. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And I love the science behind rockets too. It's really fascinating. We did solid rocket motors, not liquid. And, there's differences.
Wow.
There, but, that's.
We'll talk about solid versus liquid some other day here. But I'm just curious. I mean, so you made this transition. And now you're trying to teach others how they can transition in their mind to different places, different people, different careers, different paths. And yet so many of us, like my Depression era father,
right.
For centuries, people just lived. You did what your father did. You lived where you were born. you made the best of it you could, but you didn't really feel like you had much control over the world. The world controlled who you were.
Right. You're living more to expectations than hey, what do I want to do?
I'll give you one other example here, and then I'll let you answer some of
Yeah.
these things. So I remember asking. I met my father was raised by his grandmother, so that's my great grandmother. You don't very often get to meet great grandmothers, but I got to
Yeah.
meet mine, and
Yeah.
she was a poor Polish immigrant. She came from Poland in 1900. I don't know why. She never told me. I guess for a better life, but it sure didn't seem like it was that much better. She lived in a poor Polish ghetto down in Detroit where there were lots of Polish people.
Yeah.
Everybody spoke Polish. She only spoke Polish. And so the little bit I remember of her is her mumbling this, I couldn't believe that she was even related to me. And so I asked my father once, I said, she always seemed like a dour person. And I said, what did she do for fun? And my father looked at me like, oh my God, I've never thought of that. He said, for fun? He said, I don't know. He said, I don't think she ever thought about having fun.
Yeah.
She was just a child of circumstance. She had some poor life. She came here to get a better life. It got marginally better. She lived in a poor neighborhood. She did the best she could. She raised my father the best she could. And she had kind of a loveless marriage, and she didn't drive, and she didn't go anywhere, and she didn't do anything. I'm not saying she was unhappy, but I don't know that she was happy either. It didn't enter into her calculation. That wasn't what life was supposed to be. Like many immigrants, she was just trying to do the best she could and survive.
Yeah. You're describing my maternal grandmother as well,
And I suspect a lot of Vietnamese refugees that came over here and stuff. Happiness wasn't the top priority. Surviving was the top priority.
Survival. Yeah.
Yeah.
So James, in one or two sentences, how do you help people?
Yeah.
Well, it would start by taking the assessment. I guess that's not where it starts. How I help people is helping them work through their own belief limitations. In other words, we can identify using this tool what are my, I don't want to say limiting beliefs, but what are my thinking habits? And that's really what we talk about. The personality tests measure your rehearsed emotions, your habitual emotions. That's what a personality is, right? It's I get mad, I fly off the handle when this happens. Well, that's your rehearsed, practiced emotions. Well, behind those emotions are thoughts. So what are the thoughts that trigger those emotions? And we get back to that level and say, okay, so now let's look at those thoughts. This has been my own path too. So it's personal experience in addition to the coaching I do with people now, is identifying those thoughts. Well, worth and worthiness is a big thing. My grandmother that I mentioned, Paul, to her, if you didn't produce, now she lived on a farm. If you didn't work hard, you didn't have food, and so
Right.
your value as a human being was based on your ability to work. My mom was raised by her and her dad, and on a farm, and in the Depression era too that you referenced, Paul.
Right.
When I told my mom, what, I'm thinking about leaving my job to become a coach. And can you guess what her response was?
Are you crazy?
Pretty much. Now, she said it as a mother would. Boy, I don't know if that's a good thing, and particularly someone that if you had a job, man, you were blessed by God in the days of the Depression.
Yeah.
So why in the heck would you walk away from that?
Can we get you a little closer to whatever you're talking into? Somebody complained they couldn't quite hear you. You're a little
Oh,
echoey.
yeah. Sorry. Hopefully that's better. You might have to see my face closer, but it's a composite camera mic. So
Yeah, that's better.
More handsome.
okay.
So again, there was a expectation, I think, for a lot of the world that it was about survival and doing the best you can in this cold, cruel world that you had very little control over, and all you could do is do the best you could. And it was about stability. It was about security. It was about it wasn't about your own personal desires. It wasn't you're sacrificing for your kids. You're sacrificing for your family. I think that's a very Eastern philosophy. The parents sacrifice for the kids. It's not about my life. It's 2 or 3 generations down. Whereas Americans are obsessed with me. It's all about me. And how do I find me? Is that what this is? Is this just an American obsession?
I I don't think I would characterize it as such. I would say it's more about finding out what you are here to do and doing it.
Mm.
And that may be what I want to do, but in this case, frankly, I am more comfortable working with stuff than putting my face in front of people and doing something. But I felt called, really, inspiration, whatever you want to say. I felt like I'm supposed to be doing this,
Mm.
and I'm not. So what and why am I not doing it? In my case, there's some self-doubts, some fears that we talked about. How do you get over those? And it's been a journey for me. This tool, and again, it's just a tool to help identify that. This doesn't do the work. I can't fix somebody, just like no one can fix me. However, if you've got an objective person, and that's really the meat of this tool, is to step back objectively and say, okay, how how am I really thinking? It's like getting your subconscious mind, playing poker with your subconscious mind, getting your subconscious mind to show you its cards.
Ah,
That's
Wow.
what this assessment does.
show
So,
me your
man,
cards
that's what
here.
I'm thinking.
What are you
So,
holding here? Yeah.
yeah,
So you work with people trying to find themselves. Maybe you see it as almost a religious calling to find out who you were meant to be.
yeah. One of them, yeah. and,
Does
and working through those. Okay, so now I've identified that limiting belief. It's really hard to break through something yourself without an objective person that can help. Is that really true? Are you really being honest with yourself about that? um, you know so it's really meet with someone. What is your goal? What is your objective? What's getting in your way? Let's look at, by using this tool, and it's just part of the process. Is okay.
Is this a tool you developed, or is this a tool that's
No,
found
it's
on the
not. The
market?
Hartman value, we call it the habit finder assessment. And I'm assuming I can share a link
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
with your audience here, and they can take it. It's free to take. You get your results right away, and you can go in and click and see the explanations and stuff like that. And
That would be powerful. So you can put that in the chat notes there, Dr. Trin here. What's it called again?
the habit finder assessment, it
Habit
really.
Finder Assessment. Okay.
Do you have a link to that you can share, James?
Yeah, let me do that.
So while you're doing that, what do you think about this, Dr. Trin? Are there limiting beliefs that hold us back?
100% on a daily basis are. So what James is saying is that our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our behaviors, actions, and our actions lead to the results we get in life.
Wow. Wow.
So if the results we get in life isn't the results we want, right, it is the consequence of those actions, and those actions are the consequences of the feelings that we have and the thoughts behind those feelings. So I'm assuming that this tool that James is talking about sheds light to the thoughts that we have, and if it sheds light to the thoughts that we have, that leads to our feelings, that leads to our actions, that leads to our results, then
Right.
we need to ask, are the thoughts that we have thoughts that empower us or thoughts that limit us?
Hmm.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Did
Yeah.
I summarize it right for you,
No,
James?
that's perfect. That's perfect. You read
So,
my post yesterday.
so where do the thoughts come from? Where did these patterns emerge? Are they born into us? Are they personality types? I'm always scared. I'm never scared. Are they bred into us by our parents? Be afraid of that. Look out. Watch out what you're doing. They're trying to protect you, so they create these boundaries and these limitations. I think that was certainly the case in my parents' life. They were very loving, but my mother always taught me to be very frightened of everything here because she was
Yeah.
frightened.
Yeah.
Or are they things that we develop, political beliefs, other beliefs? We just are. I don't know where this stuff comes from, but we believe it intrinsically. We develop our own belief system out of our experiences or what we read or whatever. Here, where do they come from? Is it a combination? Is it born into us, bred into us, or do we create these ourselves?
Yeah. Paul, the answer is all of the above. The answer is yes.
Okay.
But it's an important idea. It's an important reality for you to understand that you are not your thoughts.
Mm.
You are not your thoughts. You are independent of your thoughts. You are actually in control of your thoughts. There's another really good analogy that comes out of the coaching we do, is we call it the observer's chair. We live in the chair of our unhealthy habits of thinking. That's where we go most of the time. It's our habits of thought, our habits of what we do. Getting out of that and sitting in the observer's chair and analyzing ourselves. My mom used to, she was very hard on herself, and I think she got it from, my parents are divorced. Her mom was fairly critical. My maternal grandmother, and every time we visited, it was like, you guys got to work. You're so lazy. You got to work hard.
Yeah, right.
And so when my mom, I'm a little boy sitting in the kitchen watching my mom fix dinner, and she'd drop a utensil and she'd say, "Oh, you dummy," to herself.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
how often do we say something like that to ourselves, even if
All
we
the
don't
time.
verbalize it?
All the time.
She was verbalizing it, but so if you do that, who is doing the talking and who is doing the listening?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to when you say that?
There's a word for that. It's in one of the guys I listen to a lot. The word is mind frick.
Mind frick.
Mind frick. Mind frick is when your mind is frickin' telling you stuff that's not true. And so, and we believe it, right? When in our brain, there is a specific component of our brain, the amygdala, and that part of the brain is designed to protect you, the person, protect you from harm, protect you from death. It's where flight or fight responses occur.
Right.
And the amygdala cares less about how successful you are, how happy you are, your passion. The amygdala's role is simply to protect you, the person. And so so the reason we have fear is because we have, as all the data and input goes into our life, and we're seeing things and listening to things and watching things on the news, right? Fear is a response basically from that component of the brain that says, don't do this, don't touch that, because you're going to get hurt. You may get hurt here, you may get hurt there. And so for some folks, they don't do anything in life out of that fear. And so that mindset may not be the correct mindset to have, right? You're being told.
You think so?
Yeah, it's mind frick, right? You're being told stuff just to protect your body, but it's not necessarily going to help you with your life.
So can I give you I'll be vulnerable here today and share something that's always embarrassing to me to talk about, but I will for your audience here. It's well known among my friends how frightened I am of flying. I have a terrible fear of flying, and it's not a fear of dying. It's more a fear of being confined, and suddenly my brain starts this little rodent wheel, this little hamster wheel that says, I want to get out of here. And then they say, you can't get out of here. You're stuck in here for 4 hours. Well, I want to get out of here right now. Something bad's going to happen. Well, I got to get out of here. And it becomes that kind of, and I tell myself when I'm there, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing's going to happen. You don't have to get out of the plane. There's no reason to sit here. But this little response starts, and it's gotten bad. I get these panic attacks and everything else. And it's the worst. It's the most embarrassing thing in the world, because your body is screaming at you. Something is frightening. Something's dangerous. Danger, Will Robinson. The lights are flashing, and nothing is there. And I've never been able to figure out why. I've been to therapy and I have to take a pill to short Xanax or something to short circuit this response. It's the only way I can get on a plane. And after a while, I can sort of calm it down and do other things. But it is the perfect example of that flight or fight, that fear, that fake fear that becomes so overwhelming that your body shakes and you feel like you're having a heart attack. It's shaking you that hard, saying, you're not listening to me. And I'm trying to say, there's nothing there. Shut up.
Wow. James, how do you address that?
Well, there's a couple thoughts come to mind. One is there's a difference between coaching and therapy.
Yeah, right.
And there are certain things that therapists are there for, as opposed to coaching. So if I hear something like that, I'm coaching is one lane, therapy is another lane, and they're two members of the same team to help someone overcome something. But the other thing is, and you probably speak to this better than I could, Dr. Trinh, and that's there are chemicals that go on when that amygdala that Jung was talking about kicks in. It releases chemicals that actually shut down other parts of the brain, your prefrontal cortex particularly, which is where all your thinking is. So you're trying to be rational when your amygdala is releasing chemicals that are saying you're going to die, you got to take action, screw thinking, we got to get out of here.
Right.
You know,
right.
And so there's biological things that are going on, chemical things that are going on in your body, and it's not to your advantage. So, you know, do I have a magic pill for phobias? I don't. But like I said, there's a lane for therapy, there's a lane for coaching, and they're two members of the same team if you're trying to overcome something. But if you know, if I sense someone's really in need of therapy, then I'd be happy to work with them in addition to a therapist that can actually serve them.
How does the role of a coach different than a role of a therapist, James? Are you the coach, or what are you?
Coach. I'm the coach. Yes, I'm not.
How's it different?
Getting over past trauma sometimes requires a clinical therapist. Marriage counseling, for example, and they can benefit from both, but you need to get to a certain level of, okay, I'm healing from trauma or an injury. That's more the realm of a therapist. A coach is, you know what, I recognize, as in my case, you know what, I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to be more than I am, and I'm having a hard time getting there myself. If I can get an objective third party that has the abilities, that has the skill sets, that has the experience, they can help me get there a lot faster. I could turn decades into days in some cases, but not to say you can do miracles overnight. It takes time to change, but you can do it a lot faster when you've got someone there that's working with you in the world of coach. I don't know if hopefully that helps with the distinction a little bit.
So does a coach like I don't know, I think of like sports, right? You have a coach in sports, and they're like, you know, try this play, try that play. Is that what a coach does, to say try this play with your mindset, whereas a therapist is deeper into the weeds, into that, you know? Or I'm trying to
get clear on the distinction.
Actually, I think coaches help you with accountability.
That's one thing they do, but it's also, just like you said, it's also you know, the plays. You know, how many coaches are former athletes themselves, so they've been through it, they've been in the game, they've been on the field, they know what it's like. You know, when it's personal development, is, you know, has your coach been through the transitions that you're trying to go through, that you having a hard time getting through? You know, hopefully the answer to that is yes. And then they've got that perspective of, they're not emotionally attached to your world. I mean, hopefully they care about you, because you're not going to be an effective friend to anybody if you don't really genuinely care about them and hopefully love them.
Does a coach guide you more than a therapist? That was what surprised me. A therapist isn't there to tell you what your problem is. A therapist is help you to find out your problem, to try and uncover the problem. They say, well, think about this, look at this, you know, explain that to me more. And they get you to explore this stuff here. And suddenly you start realizing, the biggest epiphany I got from going through therapy about this issue was I'm causing it myself. I guess that's pretty obvious to everybody, but you know, I'm not sure why. Part of it is a learned behavior and a pattern. My mother had phobias and was frightened. Some of it may be chemical and inherited. Some of it may be learned. Some of it just may be my personality type. But the coach is there, I think, to somehow guide you, to show you forward. The therapist started looking back, and the coach is sort of looking forward.
Ooh, that's deep.
That's a great way to summarize it. It's to get to a point of sufficient healthiness now with where I'm at, that now I want to go forward. The coach can help you get from where you are. In fact, the analogy is, you know, think of it in the Middle Ages. What was a coach? A physical coach.
I don't
It,
know.
it was a nice carriage that helped you get from
Oh,
where
yeah,
you
okay,
were to
right,
where
yeah.
you wanted to be.
Right, obviously.
And that's really the role of a coach today as well, just more figurative.
So if you're stuck in the past, you got some issues you got to work out, go see a therapist. But if you want to start from today and chart a path forward, then you need somebody with a plan, somebody who can guide you. You're the pathfinder.
Yeah.
So James,
yeah,
are you the therapist or the coach?
I'm the coach.
Are-
I'm the coach. And speaking of which, and I apologize, I have an appointment. I need to. I've got a client that I need to.
Oh yes, go do your stuff. We're gonna continue. I'm gonna
meet.
continue chatting with Paul about this mindset
Okay.
stuff in the next half hour as well.
Okay.
And
I did put the link to that assessment, so I don't know if you can share. That's in the chat here in the Zoom window.
yes,
We shared it.
I put that link onto our Facebook chat already.
Okay, great.
So it's in there. But we're gonna, thanks so much, James. We'll have to talk.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Wish I had more time.
Yeah, no worries.
All right,
Go
great.
help
Take
somebody.
care of your clients. Go help somebody.
All right, take care.
Yeah.
So
So,
what?
Paul.
Yes.
So I want to get back into this mindset issue.
It's
because
huge. It is huge.
huge.
I mean, I've been through this for years, of trying to figure out what's holding me back, what's blocking me. The plane is one perfect example, but there have been other examples in my life. Yeah.
Everything starts in here, right?
Yeah.
Success, failure. Yes, there are, external circumstances. You don't choose, where you're born. You don't choose if you're born into a family with opportunities or no. So there are a lot of external, environmental things that can make us successful or not successful. But a lot of where we are today, for each one of us, where we are today in life often is the results of decisions we have made 3 to 5 years ago, right? And where we were 3 to 5 years ago were the results of decisions we made 3 or 5 years prior to that.
Right.
How do we know, to make the decisions that empower us to where we need to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And this mindset thing, it's like, it's that term I use. Mind frick.
Yeah.
Mind frick simply means your mind is freaking telling you the wrong things to lead you down the wrong path.
Been there.
And you believe it.
Every time I get on a plane, I go through the same like a little kid arguing with myself here. So let me pose 3 questions to you, and I'll let you answer this because I think we come from totally different cultural backgrounds. Obviously, you're a child of immigrants here, and you grow up in an Asian cultures. We talked about a couple of things where it's emphasized to get education and to succeed and stuff. I'm a child of the 60s here, find myself, wander around. Who am I? What am I going to be? Endlessly thinking about me here. I'm the baby boomer, the me generation, me. I think a lot of that shape, that cultural milieu, there's a fancy word, that cultural mix that we grew up in has a great deal of setting our mind patterns. What do you think?
100%. Because our mind patterns and our beliefs have been embedded since childhood, right? The values we hold today, whatever these values are, right? We all have our top 3 values, whether it's compassion or righteous or fairness or, whatever those values are, it has been embedded, since childhood, embedded by our parents, embedded by our peers, embedded by the government, whatever it is, right?
Society, the norms. You don't do this. Good girls don't do this. Bad boys don't do this. Yeah, right.
That's right. And so the question we have is, these values that we hold are now in our subconscious.
Yeah.
And it is held as true. Right, these thoughts that we have.
Heavy emphasis on the word hell. You said hell, duh. Those subconscious can be hell because they definitely put us through hell.
Yes, and so whether these thoughts are correct thoughts or not correct thoughts, our subconscious has already labeled it as true.
Yeah.
And the question is, the first thing we need to identify is the fact that these beliefs and thoughts may not be true, and it may not be obvious to us in our conscious world, right? The decisions we make today, the thoughts we have, the feelings we have, 90% of that is embedded in our subconscious,
Yeah.
not in our consciousness. How do you dig into that subconsciousness to evaluate the thoughts you have, the beliefs you have, right? What are your beliefs, and what are those beliefs supported by which thoughts? And are those thoughts correct thoughts, or is the amygdala, which is in control of, of just simply protecting you, is the amygdala going wild and shooting every idea you have down,
Yes.
right?
All right, so let's break this down for everybody, and then I'm going to ask, while you're doing this, I'm going to ask everybody to put in their own thoughts. Are we really in control of our thoughts, or are thoughts controlling us? And if that's true, can we break that pattern? Are the thoughts too deeply ingrained in our subconscious? What's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's false? And it's just almost too, I'm not saying impossible, but really, really hard to break through that. And therefore we become a victim of those thoughts. Or, as you were suggesting here today, free yourself, baby. You are in control of your thoughts. Because I don't feel in control of a lot of thoughts. And I look around, I don't see a lot of people in control of the thought. The pandemic, oh no, it's a plot to control us, or no, it's vaccines are automatically all bad. There's a lot of these feelings, and you can say, no, come on, boys and girls, that's crazy. There's no boogeyman out there. This isn't some secret plot. And yet people believe it as if deeply held, passionate. Well, you can't tell me that. That's the way I feel.
Right. So Zach here on Facebook says, life coaches identify, describe current problematic behaviors so the client can work to modify them. Therapists analyze their client's past as a tool for understanding present behavior.
And Zach also goes on to say, relish those small victories. That's how you chip away at this. And you can absolutely break patterns. That's a message of hope that we all need to hear, because we've all got these destructive patterns. We go from one bad marriage to the next, one failed job to the next, one, I don't know, pick your poison. Our parents beat us up and we beat up our kids. I mean, these patterns persist in life.
Yeah, I read somewhere, and it may not be true, that one of the in interviewing folks who are on their deathbeds,
Mm-hmm.
in interviewing folks on their deathbeds, and I hope this isn't like a meme that is false, but one of the question that was asked for folks on a deathbed is, what do you wish you knew now, or what do you wish you would have done that you didn't do,
Right.
Prior to being on your deathbed? And one of the answers that was most common was, I wish I took more risk.
Always, yeah.
To do things that, I had on my mind when I was younger or during those times. And if that is a regret of many folks who are on their deathbeds, the question for each one of us is, what is stopping us from taking making these decisions that feel risky? Are they risky decisions? Is it a mind frick thing from the amygdala? Do not do this, do not do that, do not do this, you're going to fail, this may happen, that may happen. And are those thoughts that empower you? Are those thoughts true? Are those thoughts false?
So let me ask you a hard question. I hope this doesn't offend you, but my perception of growing up in Asian households, in Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, is that your parents, whether in China the government, but maybe it's here to your parents, tell you you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a lawyer, and you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't care. That's what you're going to do. That's what we've picked a path for you. You're going to marry this girl. You're going to do this.
Yes.
And there is a path laid out for you
Yes,
that you can embrace. Or
yeah,
or
you're absolutely right. And it's funny because there's definitely pros and cons to all that. In America, we're on one side of the spectrum, and that spectrum and that culture is the culture of me.
Yes.
Right? My choice,
My
Don't mess
freedom, my life. Don't tell
my
me what
life,
to.
my
Yeah,
body,
right,
me, right? That's our culture. Individualism is our culture,
right.
right? I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to do what I want. The culture in many other parts of the world is we.
Yes, right.
We meaning family, right? So we is not me. We means it's a group decision.
Hmm.
And in that group, parents have a higher influence oftentimes. Arranged marriages is a we thing.
Yes.
Think of arranged marriages. That's a we decision. That's not a me decision.
No.
And parents may be deciding your career path or the school you go to. It's a we decision, not a me decision. So as you can tell, I mean, that's good and bad, right? And so yeah, you're absolutely right in that.
So again, it's in some parts of the world and in people today, in all around us, there are people who feel I have no choice. I'll give you another perfect example. So I grew up in my culture, in my world, in my tribe, in the Midwest, as white suburbia here, where I grew up. Everybody was successful. 99% of the kids went to college. Is that because we were brighter? Is that because we had more money? Maybe. Or was that just because that's what was expected? There was just no dropping out. Now, that's not true in the inner city or other places where there's a high dropout rate. So you could say, well, gee, there's a cultural good thing. But there's an awful lot of kids that went to college in my neighborhood that probably shouldn't have gone to college. They should have gone to a trade school, or they should have gone out into life, or they should have done something else. And they came out with a degree in French literature that meant nothing, but it fulfilled that expectation that everybody goes to college here. So I guess what I'm saying is,
Culture.
Culture seems to influence so much of who we are and who we become. I don't know how you break that pattern easily. I don't know how you get out, and I don't know that we should. Maybe that's a bigger issue. Is it better that we're all wandering around trying to find ourselves aimlessly, or should we be listening to our parents and society and culture and saying, "Come on, just follow the path"?
Culture has a big influence on our thoughts, our behaviors, and I think next week we're bringing back that one doctor with his book.
He was fascinating. Yeah.
We're bringing him back to talk about that. But culture, I think, makes a big influence on, like in the Asian culture.
Hmm.
And I remember him saying, we asked him the question, Asians, they become doctors, lawyers, all that meme that goes along with Asian success, right?
Right.
And we asked him specifically, is it because Asians are smarter
Hmm.
or do they work harder? And his answer was pretty obvious. We just worked at it, right?
Yeah.
It's not that our IQ is any different than anyone else, but that's a culture thing. Like, for example, in our Asian household, college is just part of your trajectory. It's not even a question. Are
Exactly.
you going to college? It's just part of your natural path,
Hmm.
right? Of what you do. It's it's just that's what you do. You're done with high school and college is next, right? It's kind of like you. It's kind of like you go from grade school to junior high to high school.
No question
Right?
about it. Yeah, that's
No
just part
question
of it.
about it.
Right.
Same thing in the Asian culture. There's no question about it. High school, you're done. You're in college. It's just the same mindset. That has nothing to do with the fact that you're smarter or you have a different IQ. It's just part of your trajectory in our culture.
So I'll give you another observation here. So we did a show a couple years ago with a woman, a very unique program, and it was all about. It was really kind of about education, but her background was, her whole business was tutoring foreign exchange students, mostly affluent kids from China, who come over here because they can afford to, and their parents have the means to send them here to America. Why do they send them here to America? Because there's a perception that the education is better here. But quite often what happens is the reverse. The kids don't want to go back home because there's more freedom here. And they can find themselves, for the first time in their life, they're able, away from their parents' influence, and they can start to question, who am I and what do I want to do? Not just fulfilling the family
Yes.
goal for me
Okay.
here. And so there's this conflict. They send them there here to get a better education, to go to Harvard, to go to Stanford, to go to places that don't exist, that kind of upper crust, upper education. And in the process, in a way, they lose their kids because their kids quit following the path and start finding their own path.
100%. And you know what's interesting? This ideal of, I don't know, socialism, communism in these other countries. So the elite, right? Those who have money can send their kids to Western countries. It doesn't have to be America. It could be England. It could be Australia,
Right.
right? And they go to these, Oxford and Harvard.
Right.
And the kids come here, they become westernized.
Yeah.
They learn about TikTok. They learn about, Facebook, and they do all these westernized things.
They learn about choices. I have a choice.
Yeah. And then when they come back home, they they're going to be the future leaders over there. And I can see already these structures of totalitarianism just falling down because these children are now Western trained,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Right. So we're planting the seeds of these totalitarian societies' destructions because we're sending back kids that have a mind and are individuals now and not part of a collective.
Yes, but it all goes back to mindset, right?
Yeah.
All goes back to what we feed our mind with.
So what do you tell people out there? I'm curious to see if people feel, honestly, I'd love to get some honest feedback. Do they feel that they're in control of their own life, or are there too many factors controlling us? One, and are we how do we control our thoughts? Because our thoughts are hard to control. That was when I went through therapy and I thought, I'm having panic attacks and other things. And I'm like, that's what was frustrating. How do you fight something from within? Your brain is the only thing I knew how to rationalize things and work things out. And if your brain isn't working right, if you're hallucinating, if you're seeing things, if you're thinking incorrect thoughts, you're following old patterns that aren't working right here. What other tool? It's hard to step outside of yourself. You're in yourself. Your brain is the only thing I got to work with, and my brain ain't working. So what have I got left? It's hard to. That's why you have to look at yourself from an outside perspective, and you have to realize some of these patterns, and you have to start to say, "Oh my God, I'm doing this to myself."
Yes. Zach says cognitive behavioral therapy. Ooh, deep words. He says, as an example, those who suffer from addiction.
Addiction, perfect. Another example here.
They can change their behaviors and thought processes through this cognitive behavioral therapy, and they now live happy lives. So there is a process of first needing to recognize that our thoughts may not be thoughts that empower us.
Right.
Our thoughts may be thoughts that limit us from our potential.
Damage
right?
us in that case. Yeah.
Damning us. Yeah. To make that recognition in the first place. And you need a tool to shed light on that recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need some kind of toolkit, whether it's that, that assessment that James gave us that I plugged on there, some kind of tool to say, we've highlighted and shed the spotlights on these thought processes that have led to these emotions that you have, that have led to these behaviors and the results you have today. So you need that assessment tool to shed light on the thought process.
Or the outside perspective. I can't see myself the way, that's what a coach does. A coach sees you as you are, not who you see yourself as.
Ooh, yes. You need a coach on all this. Maybe Zach can be our coach. He's got a lot of thoughts on this.
Well, the great Michael Jordan always said that one of the greatest basketball players of all time said, I could not have gotten as far as I did without a coach. I had talent. I had drive. I would have been great. But would I have been the greatest? No, I needed somebody to see what I couldn't see. You're moving, you're dropping your arm, you're doing this. If you just pulled back a little bit, if you envisioned the ball going in more, it's something in your mind is saying, oh, I'm going to miss, and you do miss. There's a lot of sports psychology gets into that, really trying to break through those boundaries, because that's how you go from the 98% to the 99%, that one other 2% improvement. Here's the question for you as we wrap up, because this is a health show and you're a doctor. How much are we making ourselves sick by our thoughts? Are we literally hurting ourselves? Are we literally killing ourselves? Are we literally making ourselves physically sick?
The body and the mind is well connected. We know that thoughts that are negative thoughts, negative mindset, negative outlook in life, and pessimism plays a role in the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the immune system is connected to the hormones and the enzymes that are released with certain mindsets. We know that those who live with cancer live longer if they have a positive outlook.
Really? I mean, say that again. So I've got cancer, and if I
Yes.
have a positive outlook, my chances go up for living. If I have a negative outlook,
100%.
yeah.
That's the power of mindset. And we have data to show that.
Can we kill ourselves? I've seen older people. My late aunt was one of them, that she got to a point life just wasn't worth living. And it wasn't just that she didn't eat or didn't sleep, but she almost, I've seen that over and over again. People said they just willed themselves to death.
100%. I have had patients, couples. I take care of husband and wife. They've been married 50 plus years, right?
Mm-hmm.
One person dies. The other person, with no other health reason, will die within 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I hear that all the time. Yeah.
Mindset, right? It starts with the mindset, and the mind gives up and everything else follows. So we are the result of our mindset.
Mm-hmm. In reverse,
Yeah.
you hear people who went through horrible things, the Holocaust or other sorts of things. And how did some survivors survive? Some of them just wouldn't give up.
Mindset.
Yeah.
It all starts with that. And so that's I think that's the new, deep venture that we need to explore. I mean, we go out and we explore Mars, we explore
Yeah,
the
right.
planet, right? We spend rover to Mars. We need to be exploring this. We need to go inside this, more complex.
Would we take less drugs, though? Because that's what I always wondered. Too many of us are addicted to antidepressants, anti-anxieties, all this stuff. We can't seem to stop the thoughts, so we take a pill to stop it.
We're a microwave therapy
Microwave therapy,
culture.
Yeah.
Give me a pill. I'm gonna microwave it for a minute. I want results in a minute. We're a
Yeah.
microwave therapy culture, and so that's why we pop all these pills when we should be addressing not the symptoms but the cause.
Yeah. People say, again, there's a huge rise in Oxycontin and addictions and killing. Everybody knows this. These opioid addiction that is raging through the areas I grew up in, these poor towns in the Midwest that have been devastated by lack of jobs, loss of income, everything. And people give up, lose hope, and they turn to drugs to find happiness.
Absolutely. It's really a sad thing that we turn to pharma for to basically numb our mind from what we can't handle. And where I think the stuff that James is doing is great, is to bring awareness of how our mind affects our actions.
And I'm not trying to judge or minimize it. I know there are devastating things that are hard to handle for all of us in our lives.
Yes.
But when we have the option for a quick fix, I'll take a drink, I'll take a pill, I'll do something here, that becomes an easy out, an easy answer. And the harder thing is to gut it out, find it out, figure it out, all these kinds of things that I think different generations, because they didn't have that thing, were forced to. I look at immigrants. I think immigrants have a tougher character when they come over here. They've gone through hell to get here. Your own story and my grandmother's story, great-grandmother's story. They went through hell. They literally sacrificed anything and everything to get here. That kind of determination produces a different result. No wonder then they work harder and succeed more. And then they get, somehow a couple generations go by and we lose that fight, that drive, that tenacity, that toughness, mental toughness.
We do. I would love to dig deeper into mindset and create some kind of, program to help with that, for sure.
And that's what I'm saying. Can you create it, or does circumstance? Your parents came over in tough circumstances from Vietnam. My great grandmother came over in tough circumstances, apparently from Poland and other places. Before that, my Irish relatives came over because of the famine. Half of Ireland was killed by the famine in
Wow.
the 1840s, and so they all fled the famine. There was no choice. You flee or you die. And so all of a sudden you've got this kind of determination.
Yes.
Some, not all, some succumb, some give up, some die, but those who don't, it's in war. You rise to occasion. Suddenly the man jumps on the grenade or does the heroic deed. There's something about circumstances that force some of us to become
Yes.
someone we didn't think we could become. And yet, can we do that without that disaster, without that
Right.
outside stimulus? Can we just turn that on?
We're gonna bring some. I'm gonna bring some mindset experts here to our show.
I'd love to hear that. Imagine if we could turn on the determination of your parents to leave
Yes.
Vietnam, or my grandmother, or my relatives to flee the famine, against all odds, to pack up the family and just go. Or people fleeing. I know that's. I don't want to get into a debate about border crossings, but these people are desperate. They'll do anything. They'll climb any fence. They'll pay any price. I read recently a story that just sort of put it in perspective, and we'll wrap up here.
Right.
Apparently, more and more people, if they can't cross the border, they've come all the way from Guatemala. They will literally tell their 8-year-old, "Go cross the river," because they'll let you in. So goodbye, Johnny. Goodbye, Susie.
Wow.
We've come this far. I can't make it. I can't go another step. Go. And hopefully you'll find a better life over there. Can you imagine taking your 8-year-old and pushing him across the river?
Wow. Yeah. And that's the tenacity and determination, where it's we versus me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I cannot imagine that.
And so imagine if that same kind of determination, that nothing will stop us, could get turned on tomorrow in all of our lives, without that sort of without that force of nature pushing us to the brink, a place we never thought. If we could become that extreme in our everyday life, just by taking whatever, a course, a pill, if I could turn that on when I wanted to.
Wow. All right, Paul. I see a show coming. Mindset for Success.
I think so. All right.
I see a show coming.
Sorry my camera kept cutting in and out here today, but thank you so much here for joining us. You open up my mind. You get me thinking about stuff I don't often want to think about or do think about here. Thank you so much. All right.
Good to see.
Well, there you have it. If that's not a good reason to come back, I can't give you a better one. Is there a way to a healthier life, and does it start within each of us? That's really what we talk about each and every week here on Health Talks, as we talk it out. Our fears, our doubts, and our limiting beliefs, our misconceptions. Only here on our Health Talks, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio. Streaming live from the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.